you doing, everybody? We've been off for a week. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast for Friday, April 9th, 2021. Since we've been off, we've had a national championship crowned by the Baylor Bears over the previously undefeated Gonzaga Bulldogs. The Major League Baseball season has started. They're about 8 days in now as we start the Friday weekend. A lot of home openers today for the week 2 of baseball. And then the NBA continues to plug along, about 20 games left to go. We'll talk about that and more as we discuss how to make the money on the Make the Money and Run podcast. He's Casey Freelove. I'm Vasu Vadaparty. Charlie O will be in with us in a few seconds. Casey, what have you been doing with your time for the last week?
Well, it's our last week of high school football up here in California, believe it or not, in spring. So just been kind of running around, working on that, watching as much baseball as I can, being disappointed daily by my team I root for, the Oakland A's, and just kind of enjoying life as we are in full spring gear here. And the good thing is my next trip to Reno is paid for because I did told you people, I picked Baylor before the tournament. I bet $50 on them and I won back 400. So that was a nice return because I did not have a great trip up to Reno, but at least I've kind of licked my wounds and given myself some incentive to head back up there. But I'm doing well. And how have you been?
I've been all right. I had a few days off just getting ready with the swing of baseball going in. I've been pretty busy with that. Couple of family things going on. So just kind of needed to recharge after the whole NCAA tournament. You know, that story reminds me of, I don't know how much golf you've played in your life, but that story always goes, you have just the crappiest round. And then on 18, you end up making that putt that brings you back again. So your last play in Reno on Baylor at, what was it, plus 8-1 or something like that? So 8-1, now you won. That's your last bet in Reno. So now you're getting pulled back to go back again because you made that last putt on there. So that's kind of how it goes. Speaking of golf, let's give an update. This is Masters week. Seems like we just had the Masters in November. Oh, we did have the Masters in November because of 2020. Bernd Weisberger leads the Masters at -4. Mark Leishman, Justin Rose, who was the day one leader, also at -4, and Brian Harman, also out of the USA, -4. And then the next one, Hideki Matsuyama, is -3, and then 6-7 golfers at -2, day 2 of the Masters. Haven't really had a chance to watch much. I don't know what the weather's like down there, but I know it's been on a TV here and there. So it'll be interesting to see how 2021 comes up. The scores will be a lot higher than they were last November because they really didn't have a time to manicure it. And you can tell that the players are having a tough time because of the weather and the wind. And, of course, they had more time to manicure it than they did last year, not having any golf to go. So that's who we are. Make the Money and Run podcast, powered by Stables Media. Vasu Vadaparty, Casey Freelove, Charlie O will join us in a second. Check us out on Facebook and our YouTube page live. If you've missed any of the live broadcasts, we're happy to be back. You can download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts on Facebook, on Apple, Google, iHeart, Spotify, SoundCloud, and anywhere you get your podcast. All right, let's get to it right now. Let's talk about Major League Baseball a little bit. As we said, the odds will pop up on the bottom. You'll see the odds pop up on the bottom. But let's go to a little bit of baseball notes here before we get to NBA and the NCAA recap. But a lot of things going on in the MLB. 3 up, 3 down, we'll call it. Baltimore and Boston leading the American League East at 4-3. Minnesota 5-2. Those Houston Astros 6-1. Philadelphia 5-1. Behind good pitching, actually. Their bullpen's been actually really good. Cincinnati Reds 5-1. Not sure if that's surprising to a lot of people or not, but it's based on their offense. Dodgers 5-2. They lost opening day to Colorado, and then they lost an extra inning game to the A's, who are 1-7 now. The only win coming Wednesday against the Dodgers in extra innings. Miami 1-6. What a way for the Miami Marlins. I don't know if you saw that. What a way to lose a walk-off hit batsman in the bottom of the 10th inning or bottom of the 9th inning against the Mets last night. The Pirates are 1-6. Kind of had a feeling there. Arizona's pitching is not very good. They're 2-4. The biggest news to me in Major League Baseball is, look at this, Casey. Houston, you figured because they've got the bats, but the Cincinnati Reds are plus 31 in run differential. That ties them with the Houston Astros. Minnesota plus 24. They've got nothing but boomers on that team anyway, and they did play Detroit a little bit. And then on the other end, the Tampa Bay Rays, the American League champions, minus 19, Seattle minus 14. Again, those Pittsburgh Pirates minus 27, and the Arizona Diamondbacks at minus 18. And look there, 1-6. The Oakland Athletics minus 40. And I don't know what to make of the A's. I know they start off bad. Boy, minus 40 after only 7 games. That's a lot to be down. That's going to be hard to make up through the end of the year, through even the next 3 weeks, Casey, next month.
Well, the pitching has not been awful, but it's not been great. But they've had literally no help. Their high water mark in the 8 games that we're talking about was the 4 that they got, which required extra innings and an assist from baseball with a runner at second, if you will, to pick up that one victory. And yeah, minus 40 is just shocking. And they haven't really been competitive in many of these games. I mean, they got swept away by the Astros to open the season. And certainly the next answer is not to bring in the defending World Series champion Dodgers, who just are on a tear and are going to be on a tear, as we talked about on this program in the preseason. So, yeah, that really jumped out at me, that minus 40, because there's nobody, even of other bad teams, there's nobody that's even close to that bad. I mean, you said the Pirates at minus 27. That's a pretty big differential for this early on in the season. I would say the biggest surprise for me is that the Astros are 6-1. Not that I didn't think they'd be successful, but I think if you're gambling, hold on. One piece I hold on to from the preseason is always keep those sheets that have the win total projections on them. You can also pull them up on the internet, of course, but you want to look at that and say, okay, well, at some point they're going to be close to these numbers, or Las Vegas wouldn't have put them together. And right now the Astros are on pace to shatter over under 87.5. They look like the best team in the West. And as much as we like to boo them and throw garbage cans on the field, this and that, they're a very talented club. The other thing I like about them, Vasu, is their manager. Dusty Baker's a calming force. He's a lot different than AJ Hinch. He kind of helped right the ship last year during the weird strike shortened season and picked up a playoff victory. Dusty knows about going deep in the playoffs, as he's done so in the past with the Giants. Even with the Nats, he had some success. So I would say the Astros are a bit of a surprise. Also surprised that the New York Yankees are just kind of limping out there at 3-3. We both know, my friend, that they're not going to end up being around 500. They're going to be a much better than 500 team. I'm intrigued by their matchup they have today. In fact, I'll have a play on that game a little bit later in the show. And we talked about Boston. They could be a basement team, or they could be right there competing, and they're right there competing at 4-3. Now, obviously, with a sample size of 7 games, folks, this isn't enough to really, lock in who the great teams are going to be. But all in all, baseball is very, very much parity, and you've got a ton of teams that are either at 500, one game over 500, or one game under 500. It's good for the sport early on, and I think we'd probably both agree on this, Vasu. Even if you're going to play, you can't go big in the first couple of weeks while you're still getting your feel. Your sweet spot's going to be coming up here in probably about a month once these teams have had a chance to get acclimated to the new season. That's when you'll start finding more value. I'm not saying don't gamble on them, but maybe don't put as large a unit bet as you would typically.
No doubt about it. Some of the games, some of the teams that have shown interest to me, Baltimore and Boston. Of course, Boston lost to Baltimore. They got swept at home opening weekend by the Baltimore Orioles, who got off to a good start. Baltimore's pitching still a little suspect. Orioles had a lead yesterday. Their first home game against the Red Sox, they lose that one. Red Sox on a 4-game winning streak after sweeping Tampa in the middle of the week, and then the Yankees 3-3. Toronto Blue Jays 3-4. I just get the feeling they're going to be better. And you watch those games in Buffalo. I watched the Angels game yesterday a little bit in Buffalo. There's going to be a lot of runs scored in that park. There's no doubt in my mind there's going to be a lot of runs scored in that park. And then, of course, Tampa Bay, we said 2-4. They lost a few guys from their roster last year. They just got to figure out. And how about one note from the Baltimore-Boston series? How about the Orioles having their home opener yesterday? Trey Mancini calling cancer stage 3 a couple of years ago, opted out last year, obviously, for treatment. They came back, got a great 5-minute standing ovation yesterday by both teams. The stands, there were fans in the stands in Baltimore as well, too. In the American League Central, the Minnesota Twins, Nelson Cruz, 42 years old. He has the most home runs of any active player since 2014. And if you were to say Nelson Cruz, you're either following baseball very closely. I didn't even know that until I saw that against the Tigers the other day. But he's got 240 home runs since 2014, and that's more than some of your current power hitters. The Houston Astros, their pitching's been a lot better. Of course, they've had the Oakland A's for 5 of these games, so that doesn't help at all because that helps Houston because right now Oakland can't do anything right. Seattle Mariners are 3-4. The Texas Rangers are 3-3. The surprising LA Angels. We talked about their game against Toronto, Casey, in the American League West today. It's too early to say, but I like the way their makeup is right now. They did lose twice to the White Sox last weekend, but they've won since then, and they're on a 1-game winning streak right now. But they did lose 2 out of 3 to the White Sox over last weekend, and now they're back. And then the Philadelphia Phillies, as we move on to the National League, 5-1. Zach Wheeler going today, as you can see on the screen here. Zach Wheeler against Charlie Morton. Atlanta, slight favorite at home. I'm interested to see Zach Wheeler, a very good number 2 guy behind Aaron Nola, who had a good start already against in his last start earlier in the week. The Washington Nationals had COVID. They've only played 3 games, but they look like they're going to be in trouble this year. And then, of course, Miami. Did you see the game? Let's talk about that a little bit. Did you see the ending of the New York Mets-Miami game yesterday in the bottom of the 9th inning?
Just on Sports Center, yeah.
Okay, well, apparently, I watched it live. It was in the afternoon. It was the Mets home opener. Down 2-1. Jeff McNeil hits the game-tying home run. Miami has closer issues. They're going with Anthony Bass, the former Twin. He's already blown 2 saves this year. The Mets end up getting the bases loaded, and then on a 1-2 pitch, Ron Copley, the home plate umpire, actually started a motion strike 3, but then he changed it mid-strike call and said the ball hit Conforto's elbow with the bases loaded. Game over, ball game, Mets, 3-2 final. Everybody goes home happy on Mets opening day if you're a New York Mets fan. They were talking about it all day yesterday in terms of the rule. If the ball's in the strike zone, then the hit batsman gets canceled out. But what a way to lose. I mean, hopefully that's not a foreshadow of 2021 for the Miami Marlins. I can't think of another one. I've watched a lot of baseball over my life. I've never seen a game end like that where the umpire had him half rung up and then all of a sudden called it hits batsman. And then at the end, in the press conference, he admitted he made a mistake. So that doesn't help the Miami Marlins either when the home plate umpire is already making a mistake, Casey.
Yeah, it's like, you got some other buddies out there on the field. Why don't you get together and make sure you got the call right before you end up costing a team a game? And yeah, that was a very odd situation. Never good. We shouldn't be saying umpires' names on podcasts. That's how bad that was, because
umpires and referees. Yeah,
you're supposed to be anonymous. We shouldn't know who you are. But yeah, that was an interesting ending for sure. Let me throw this out there. Let's talk a little bit about the structure, because I think a lot of people were surprised 2 days ago when the A's and Dodgers went into extra innings and they found a runner at second base like they did during the pandemic shortened season. I don't know if we're getting old. I don't know if this was designed specifically to kind of save arms during a long season, but I don't like it. I want to go back to you got to earn your runs in extra innings, and I don't care how many guys you got to bring out of the bullpen to make that happen. My question to you, Mr. Baseball, is this just a one-year deal, or are they going to put this in the new CBA? Is this going to be a permanent fixture in Major League Baseball?
Yeah, I understood. That's a good question, Casey. I understood what they did, why they did it last year, because you were such in a compacted time. You were playing 60 games in 66 days, and you didn't want to blow arms out in a 2.5-month period. And any rule that they went to last year just to get baseball back for everybody was okay with me. But I thought the runner at second was the worst rule ever. I've talked to baseball people over the last 3 months during the wintertime when we were all happy to see baseball. This runner on second is a bad rule. Nobody likes it. I know we're getting old. We are probably getting older in terms of the way baseball is going, but there's so many relievers and there's so many pitching staffs. It kind of counteracts the way I look at it. Kind of counteracts what baseball is doing, because everybody's stacking up their bullpen with righties and lefties, and the San Francisco Giants have 13 pitchers on their roster and 8 relievers, 3 lefties. You can't have situational specialty situations because you have to face 3 batters minimum. So if you're going to do that, then why have a runner at second base? I just don't understand why. Yeah. Because you're going to pull runners out. I mean, it counteracts each other. Baseball right now, going through the feeling out process, they're trying to figure out how to get younger people back in. But I like the pitchers facing 3 batters. I do not like the extra innings rule, and they'll have to figure it out by the time the CBA comes up in the wintertime. It'll be interesting to see. All right, how about the Los Angeles Dodgers 5-2 as we move on to the National League? You see the National League betting line at the bottom. The Dodgers 5-2 opening day against the Rockies. They lose. Kershaw pitches that game, and then we reference the extra inning game on Wednesday to the A's. Trevor Bauer has had 2 good starts. He's 1-0, not looking like a Cy Young candidate yet, but it's only been 2 starts. He's been okay. The San Diego Padres 4-3. Did you see the other night against the Giants, Fernando Tatis Jr.'s dislocated shoulder on the swing? That was horrible. And that really impacts the San Diego Padres going forward this year, because people have them thought of as the second best team, even over the Yankees in certain places or certain areas. San Diego Padres 4-3 right now. Game back in the loss column of the Dodgers. The Giants have hit a lot better than I thought they would. They took 2 out of 3 for the Padres. I would have never thought that, with a win on Wednesday afternoon and then the win Monday night behind Kevin Gausman Wednesday. I forgot who threw Monday, but yeah, 5-2 4-3, 3-3 for the Giants, 3-4 for the Rockies. Shout out to Ryan McMahon, the only guy that's happy that Nolan Arenado got traded from the Colorado Rockies to the St. Louis Cardinals. 3 home runs the other night for Mr. McMahon, family friend. That's why I bring him up against the Arizona Diamondbacks, whose pitching staff is horrible. They did lose that game in extra innings, even though Ryan McMahon had 3 home runs. So let's talk a little National League baseball here, Casey. As we got the American League lines up there with the National League lines. Scroll on the bottom. What do you like about the National League so far?
Well, I think the Dodgers are who we thought they were. They can win 5 out of every 7. They'll be fine for the whole season. I can't say I've watched enough of the Giants or Rockies to feel them out. I think Colorado was one of those teams that Las Vegas put the number where they want you to bet the under in the early season as far as to win totals, and they might actually hover a little higher than we thought. I mean, again, a weekend of baseball, I can't make any huge projections or analysis that's going to maybe hold for the whole season. I think that, like I said, LA is still the class of the pack. I will be interested to see how that Tatis injury impacts the Padres moving forward. They're still +8 with their run differential. They've got some other guys that can rake, and this time they're going to have a little better pitching to lean on as well. With the Giants, again, 3-3, still figuring it out. They're not good. They're not bad. If you're 3-3, you're average, and that's fine right now in the early season. I would take that as an A's fan instead of 1-7 or 1-6 or whatever. That's not fun.
-40 run differential.
Yeah,
perfect lead in.
One team that I was looking at earlier and talking about on our last program last week, though, was I had the over on the Phillies for their projected win totals for the season. Pleasantly surprised that they came out 5-1, especially considering they had to play the Braves and the Mets, which are 2 teams you're going to have to play a bunch if you're in that division. But we knew they had batting. They just had to be able to have a little bit of pitching. And so far, they've done a pretty good job. I'm looking at their scores here from the regular season. They've allowed 2 runs, 3 runs, 4 runs, 1 run, shutout, 2 runs. If you can do that, and Bryce Harper and company can keep it going, I mean, you've got a pretty good team there that maybe can make some noise. I don't know, though, with the National League East, how exactly it's going to work out, Charlie, because we've got, Team COVID here with Washington, which makes it a little harder to handicap. And the thing is already losing 4 games early on in the season, when you already realize how much you're going to have to compile more doubleheaders later in the year, you don't even know if this is your last outbreak, because I don't know if you guys want to spend time on it later. This is a whole sports show. We could talk about the ending of the Vancouver Canucks, basically, which is a shame. But anyway, Chuck, we're talking National League East. I think the Phillies are a bit of a pleasant surprise. Atlanta is certainly better than their early start here. And, hey, the Mets are good, too. This division is going to be one that's going to be very watchable all year long. I think it's good news for every market involved, because you've got a bunch of teams here that have the potential to win some games.
Yeah, I think that especially those top 4 teams will be interesting. I'm hoping that Miami will get back into it and give us a little bit of excitement like they did in the shortened season and be there. But most certainly Philadelphia right now, living up to a little bit of the hype preseason that some of the prognosticators gave us. And, I'm a Girardi believer. And I think that there's going to come a time when the Yankees are going to truly rue the day when they let him go. Not that I'm not a Boone fan. I love Boone. But, Girardi knows baseball. And he's got a lot of talent there, and it's all going to come together. And Philadelphia could be happy again. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if anybody in Philadelphia is ever really happy, but they certainly look like a juggernaut right now, and it'll be fun. And I heard a couple of guys last night being interviewed on MLB radio from the Mets. And those guys, they're just excited. And one of the things they're really excited about is the new ownership. And I think it's so funny. They're calling the new owner Uncle Steve. That's the kind of attitude, Uncle Stevie. Yeah, because they feel like they've got somebody that finally cares about the team. Well, folks, I know that the owner doesn't play, But when you've got an owner an owner you feel like cares about the team, you also feel like if they need a player, if they need something, he's going to do something for the team. And that makes a big difference in the attitude of what the team's going to do.
Uncle
Well, let's
Steve,
give him
can
a-
I borrow your yacht? Uncle Steve, can I borrow your helicopter? Uncle Steve, can I borrow $1 billion? Let's get together on this.
You don't need to borrow $1 million from him. You just call Francisco Lindor because he's already shown that he's already there. $341 million for Francisco Lindor. All right, well, let's give him his proper introduction as we give baseball in. Charlie O coming in along with Casey Freelove, Vasi Vadaparty. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast for Friday, April 9th. We've been off for a week. We've had a lot of things happen. Week, the opening of baseball, the NBA. Talking Major League Baseball right now. We've had a national championship crowned. It's been an interesting week. Perfect lead in as we talk National League Baseball to Charlie. The Cincinnati Reds, not doing it by pitching. They are doing it by their bats, Charlie. I know you're a big Reds guy growing up in Ohio. And the one stat that stuck out to me when I was preparing for the show today was this one right here. Cincinnati Reds are plus 31 in run differential. They've won 5 in a row after losing. I think they lost the Saturday game to St. Louis. But they're 5-1, leading the National League Central over the Chicago Cubs right now. The Cubs are at 4-3. St. Louis Cardinals, kind of pleasantly surprised. Nolan Arenado in his home opener. What a way to ingratiate yourselves to the St. Louis fans. I was really shocked that Milwaukee and Craig Counsell. This is the way baseball is. Corbin Burns has thrown 6 solid innings against the Cardinals, only giving up 1 hit. They pull him out in the 7th inning for I forgot who the relief pitcher was. But anyway, Cardinals get a run in the 7th. Arenado bombs 1 in the 8th. Cardinals go home happy. And they're 5-2 right now. They've won 4 in a row. They were a big underdog with Adam Wainwright yesterday because of how Corbin Burns pitched against the Cubs and against the Cardinals. 2 hits in 13 innings for Corbin Burns. 18 strikeouts in those 13 innings for the Milwaukee pitcher. Charlie, tell me about the Reds and why do you pull Corbin Burns after 6 innings, giving up 1 hit, shutting him down?
Well, the Reds have finally done what they ought to do, and that's build power hitters. They play in the biggest bandbox in all of baseball. I mean, I've been to that ballpark, and they built that ballpark to be like the old Crosley Field, which was actually the first Major League Baseball park that I ever saw a baseball game in. That tells you how old I am, because some of you out there are going, Crosley, what? But it is a bandbox. And because of the weather, particularly during the spring and summer in Cincinnati, that ball flies out of there to all fields, right field, center, left. It doesn't make any difference. That ball will fly out of there. So they put together some power, and they can have that kind of run differential. Well, 31 runs is a little high, but they can have that kind of run differential in a plus category all season long with that. Now, the problem is being a pitcher in Cincinnati. That could be brutal because the other team can hit as well, especially when you're up against some of the power hitting teams. But I think they finally got the vision of we need power hitters, and that can serve them well. As far as pulling guys after 6 innings, guys, that's going to be baseball. This is baseball by sabermetrics. You're going to see the number of wins and the number of no decisions by starting pitchers plummet because that is going to be the way it's going to be. Pitch me 6 and we're going to take care of 7, 8, and 9. And it's going to drive agents nuts, because you know what's going to happen when they go in to negotiate contracts. Guys are going to go, well, you didn't get many decisions for me last year. And agents are going to have to come out and start spreading out sabermetrics and saying, yeah, but look what we did. And really, it's going to be a whole new paradigm in negotiating contracts, because who was it? One of the guys that's really into sabermetrics, and there's so many guys now that are into it, but was really talking about it. The number of no decisions by starting pitchers, he said, is just going to continue to slide. And he said, watch it all season long, because it's going to be true this year, because in fact, he was suggesting that Major League Baseball is going to have to change the stats on decisions because of the way that they're changing it. And he thinks that the Players Association is going to have to get into it, because it'll be a way to suppress salaries if they don't do it.
Well, do you think that means, like, as far as maybe only 4 innings for a quality start. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you could spin that. Maybe you put a higher value on what we call holds for your middle relief guys, because you're right, this is going to start messing with their money, and that's the one thing that baseball players are saying.
You do not mess with
don't
money.
mess with my money, Vasu. They don't want that money messed with.
There's no doubt about that. It's going to be really interesting. So from a wagering standpoint, let's talk about it, since that's what we are, a wagering show in terms of advice. When you're looking at starting pitching and the odds of starting pitching, are we looking at this is a two-pronged question. I'll start with Casey on this. Do we look at starting pitchers from the first 5 innings of games now? Do we not bet whole games now because we don't know what the bullpens are? And then also from the standpoint of when you look at pitchers' records, or you get the old newspaper out, if you still have newspapers delivered to you, and figure out starting pitching and the wins line out, really the wins-loss record and all this other stuff that goes into the odds making. You can't look at the individual starting pitcher's record anymore. You have to look at what their record is in games that they've started in order to determine your wagering prospects, Casey.
Yeah, I think you need to hammer that point home every week for bettors, because it's a very good one. And it's one that it almost seems counterintuitive as a gambler, because you're thinking, look, okay, I've got Corey Kluber on the mound. Let's say a Kluber of 2 years past on the mound. This guy, if hot, is going to be able to give me 6-7 innings. All I need the bullpen to do is come in, have their middle relief grab me 1, and then they've got a pretty good back-end closer. This is while he was with Cleveland. That's the typical gambler's mindset that we all have had for many, many years. I think you brought up a good point there as far as looking at first 5. I mean, you could probably get 5 out of your guys. First 5 can get real dicey in the 5th, though. I'll tell you that as an experienced guy of betting these. It always looks pretty through the first 4, but once you get back into that lineup in the 5th, that's where over-unders go to die. Believe me, it's happened to me time after time. But I think in all seriousness, guys, that might be something we have to look at a little more in depth. In fact, I'll pull up some numbers here in future shows where we can kind of really analyze these specific pitchers that are getting you the 5 innings, and then you can handicap bullpen-wise. Another advantage we have here, Charlie, being folks of the internets, we can just go on there and wait. The beauty of live betting is you can let the game start to flow. If you've got a good team playing a really crappy team, and somehow that crappy team can get an early edge, say it's Yankees and Marlins in interleague play, New York goes down 2-0 in the 3rd inning. Well, guess what? Instead of them being minus 200 like they were before the game started, you might be able to get them at plus 120, 130, and earn a little bit extra cash. I think we could spend an entire program talking about that specific aspect of gambling. But back to what Vasu said, if you got the starting pitching bet in for the first 5 and it's not going the way that you thought, live betting, it can be very good. And I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It can get very ugly as well.
Absolutely, Casey. And I think Vasu's point's very clear also. If you're going to bet whole games now, you need to know about the performance of the bullpen, because now, of course, to just kill my point, Lance Lynn last night pitches a complete game shutout in Chicago.
What? A what? What's that? I don't even remember those anymore.
No, look that up in the definitions. You'll have to find it. But with these games going where the starter is only going 5 or 6, you're going to need to know what the performance of the bullpen is like, because you can have this great first 5-6 and then watch the whole thing blow up. And so that first 5 is interesting. But Casey, to your point, that first 5 also can be a nail biter, because we know a lot of these guys are great the first time through the order, but you need to know what that pitcher's performance is like the second time through the order. And a lot of these guys, if they've thrown a lot of pitches and they start coming through that order for the 3rd time, which a lot of them do in that first 5 or in that first 5, because a lot of them are tossing a lot of pitches, especially this time early in the season. A lot of them the 3rd time through the order, it's kiss it goodbye. So it's again, baseball is a game of stats. And if you don't like stats, don't wager on baseball, because that's going to tell you what you need to do.
And Vasu, another thing you can do to go with, the bullpen theory we're talking about, get your popcorn, get your sandwich, sit down, let the game get going, relax, and really, as Chuck said, focus in on the bullpen. See who you think the most likely guys are that are going to get pulled in once the starting pitcher gets yanked. Kind of start handicapping the odds that you would set in your mind. then when the numbers pop up on your offshore account, you have a decent chance at least at hopping in, and then you can really get in with a little bit more knowledge. Because I think, at least, my attitude over the years has been, I only want to handicap starting pitching and the closer. I don't want to worry about these guys in the middle, and that strategy is just not going to work anymore. So I have to adapt. I will be doing so, and I think I'll be doing a lot more live betting this year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see in terms of how that works. But the last few years, it's been that way. Starting pitchers are only asked to go 4 or 5 innings. Charlie's point to arbitration numbers. Agents are the ones that have come up with sabermetrics. They're the ones that are helping their clients determine what. Really, Scott Boras and his team is the one who really started it, because you got wins and losses that don't matter anymore in terms of starting pitching. How do you determine a pitcher's value? You determine it by, does he miss any turns? How many innings does he go per start? Whatever the case is, strikeouts to walk ratio, all these other numbers that agents are using that now baseball has kind of incorporated into sabermetrics. Yeah, yesterday, perfect example, Lance Lynn. Lance Lynn, you're the outlier. A complete game shutout, not only one category, a second category, a shutout, a complete game shutout. We won't see that. I remember I was looking this up yesterday, guys, and we'll get off baseball here in a couple seconds. We'll get to the weekend's games here in a second, but I was looking this up yesterday. The last time I saw a pitcher have 10 complete games, I think, was 2001. I think Curt Schilling had 10 complete games, or Randy Jones. One in the Arizona, they might have both had them. I was just looking it up. The last 3 years combined, there have been, I think, only 3 teams that have had 10 complete games as a staff over the last 3 years compared to what they did in the previous days of Randy Johnson, Curt Schilling. It's just the way it is. The San Francisco Giants, I see them every day, so I know that. They have 13 pitchers in their bullpen. You don't think Gabe Kapler's going to use them? The Dodgers starting pitching up galore, but they got to go to their bullpen. They got to find a closer too, but they got to go to the bullpen. All right, let's look at some of the baseball this weekend. As we look at it, you see the odds flashing across the American League teams right there, and the National League on the bottom. Switch that up in a second so people can have an idea of odds this weekend. The Tampa Bay Rays open their home season against the Yankees. Dodgers open their season against the Washington Nationals. Giants opened their home season against the Rockies. Blue Jays had their home opener, an extra inning game last night. Lots of runs, Charlie. We were talking about it before you came on. Lots of runs going to be scored in Buffalo this year. The over/under is going to be pinball machine like the original days of Colorado. The Indians, kind of a slow start right now. Detroit got off to a good start, but now they're kind of coming back. Braves, Phillies, we talked about, good series. Padres, Rangers, no Tatis Jr., that's a big one. Athletics, Astros, we don't know what's going on with the A's yet. Hopefully they'll turn it around. It's not July yet, but pretend it's July, Oakland. And then the Reds on their 5-1 record in Arizona tonight with Tyler Mahle going in as a pretty heavy favorite. I don't remember Cincinnati ever being that much of a heavy favorite going into the weekend. What do you think about baseball, Charlie, this weekend? Some of the games you like, something that's interesting.
By the way, Vasu, let me just clarify. Toronto is not in Buffalo. They are in Dunedin.
They're in Florida. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
They are at their player development complex. They're in Florida, which, by the way, I took a virtual tour, not a virtual tour, an actual tour of on YouTube yesterday. It is phenomenal. It is incredible. They have a complete major league locker room. They have 3 minor league locker rooms, which I'm sure they're using all 3 for the visiting club. The field itself, it only holds 8,500 fans, but everything is major league dimensions except right center field, which is 354 feet. So look for that thing. I mean, if you're a hitter, you are looking at that going, there is my spot. And of course it's Florida, outdoors, and weather-wise, that's going to be, that's going to make you go, I can hit there well. So that's going to be something that's going to be very tempting, I think, for hitters. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting weekend of baseball. Just in general, I love the way things are going. Cincinnati, I'm excited. Just in general as a Reds fan. And at this point, I got to admit, I'm a very casual Reds fan because I don't get to listen to them all the time and things like I did. But I'm excited the way they're off. I'm surprised at a few teams that aren't doing well out of the box. Everything's kind of just I'm trying to get a feel for everything. The Yankees are doing what I thought the Yankees would do. I'm interested in the Tigers. They've got some interesting elements that could be there. I mean, I didn't think I'd be saying that. They've got a few players there that look interesting that could make some things happen. The Braves need to get righted. I'm excited about this Phillies Braves series. That could be a picture of what we could be looking at down in August and September of what we need to be watching. I'm interested to see what the Padres are going to do without Tatis. What are they going to be like without him in the lineup? So it's going to be a fun weekend of baseball.
Go ahead, Casey.
Well, let's lock in on today's matchups a little bit. Obviously, these are good series for the weekend. As far as early trends, because I'm looking for anything I can find, I think baseball is more of a trend play sport than anything because teams just tend to play the same way for long stretches of time. Yankees, they've had that total go under in 7 of their last 8 games. The total's at 8.5. But as Charlie just mentioned, now you might want to hit the pause button until we see how that porch works out there. Or actually, never mind. You were talking about Toronto there. Anyway, under in 7 of their last 8 games. That's something to keep an eye on. And by the way, guys, Tampa 9-2 straight up against the Yankees in their last 11. Now, clearly, this is not the same Rays team that played those Yankees teams, but it is always something to keep in mind. As far as Rockies Giants, total's gone under in 4 of Colorado's last 5, and the total's gone under in 4 of San Francisco's last 5. So something to keep an eye on there. Let's see. Talking about Tatis and the Padres in Texas. This will be a contrast in styles because the Padres have had 5 unders in a row, while the Rangers have had 5 overs in a row. So take a look at that total. It's going to be right around the number, I can assure you, something that close. And going back even to last season, Texas 5-1 in their last 6 games at home, even though I know that wasn't the same home or it's a different home because they got a new home with a new building, but you get what I'm saying here. As for the lowly A's, the total's gone over in 6 of their last 7 games when playing Houston. That one kind of sticks out to me, guys, because we talked about the minus 40 run differential, Vasu, you and I did earlier. At some point, these bats have to wake up. I mean, is Chris Davis and Marcus Semien leaving going to be the reason why this team can't score more than 2 runs on average a game? I'm just not buying that. In fact, I'm probably going to move that over into the old play column today because it feels like at some point you can't be minus 40 as far as run differential when you've got that much raw talent on the field. And even if your pitching sucks and has given up a bunch of runs, you should be able to hang in there in a 4-run, 5-run, 6-run game just based on that. So early on in the season, I'm leaning on trends. I think it's a decent matchup for the weekend. It's weird that we're looking at a Friday slate. And once again, we don't have every team playing, Vasu. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it, looking at the various off days and things. And it's kind of fun.
Guys, by the way, just because it popped into my head talking about the A's, they just had to announce today that Trevor Rosenthal, who they picked up to be their closer, is going to have to go on the injury list. This is the first time I've heard about this surgery. He has a thoracic outlet surgery coming up. I've been trying to learn up. It's related to the shoulder, and that once he has the procedure, it's a 12-week recovery time. So that's going to hurt their bullpen situation. My guess would be, looking at their bullpen, it could be Sergio Romo time. And Yasmero Petit. So it could be a Giants retro bullpen there trying to close games out for them. So that's not good news for the A's.
So you've had a party, Casey Free Love, Charlie O. You can join us every Monday, Thursday, and Friday, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific time. A little different time today is Giants opening day in a few hours. Facebook Live, Stables Media YouTube page. You can download and subscribe anywhere you get it if you missed the live broadcast. Keep in mind those starting pitchers. Check out those bullpen stats as we get into wagering for Major League Baseball. All right, we're going to take a 30-second break. We'll come back, talk the NBA. We're down to the last third in the NBA season. Some interesting things over the last week since we've been off in terms of the NBA. So back in 30 seconds. This is the Make the Money Run podcast powered by Stables Media. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast. Vasi Vada Party, Casey Freelove, Charlie O. We're powered by Stables Media. Download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. If you miss the live broadcast, we're here every Monday, Thursday, and Friday, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific on Facebook Live. Also, you can check out the Stables Media YouTube page. Hello to everybody out there on Facebook. Thanks for popping on. As always, second week of Major League Baseball season, the NBA starting to wind down. We've got a national championship since we've been on. We got a national championship decided in college basketball. In fact, let's hit that for a couple of seconds before we hit the NBA, guys. We haven't had a chance to talk about the Final Four. I'm still a little surprised Baylor won. I'm not totally shocked that they won, but boy, did they shut down Houston, and that probably should have been a precursor, Casey, to the Gonzaga game. I thought Baylor had a definite chance. Obviously, you did too with your futures bet, but boy, to put it on them like that and to beat them in every facet, Baylor really deserves it. Mitchell, Teague, Butler, Flagler, the off the bench guard, they all shot the lights out on Saturday and Monday. Davion Mitchell's nickname is Day Off because whoever he guards, they end up having a day off. And certainly that whole Gonzaga game, whoever he was on, Kispert did not have a good game on Monday night. Gonzaga had the overtime game with UCLA in the Final Four. Maybe they were a little tired from that. There was a 48-hour turnaround time with that. But boy, give UCLA credit as well too. And Houston, I just had a feeling Houston was outmatched when they played Baylor. They can't shoot the ball very well. They tried to get the offensive rebound, but once it started getting to 10, 15, you could just tell Baylor was going to put their foot down and kind of stomp them out a little bit. And then to come out and have a big start, Casey, like that against Gonzaga on Monday night really showed what kind of job Scott Drew did this year, considering all the COVID issues they had.
Scott Drew is a magic maker, and if you don't believe me, go back and read about Baylor basketball 2003. We'll save that, you can just read that at your leisure, but this school came from literally the ashes. Like we're talking like if you remember when Southern Methodist had the hammer dropped on them by the NCAA in football back in the 80s, this is what happened to Baylor basketball in the early 2000s due to some really disgusting things that happened within the program and even outside the program. So enter Scott Drew. What's he do? Well, he gets some walk-ons, gets them to go 4-13 in a non-league schedule because they took away their league schedule. That's back in 2005. Fast forward to 2010, he's already got this program in the Elite Eight. They'd make another appearance in the Elite Eight, and both times losing to the eventual national champions. And they've just been building towards this moment. I mean, I'm even having fun looking at the social media of Mitchell and Butler and these guys because they basically said it. We're dogs. Gonzaga had never seen any dogs like this. We come out there, we're going to play. We came back to school to get to this game, and that's exactly what they did. Let's not kid ourselves, Chuck. Look, if they didn't hit the COVID pause, this Baylor team might have been an undefeated Baylor going against an undefeated Gonzaga, and they just outplayed them. I mean, it was 9-0. Gonzaga was never in the game. It was never closer to 9 points once it got to 9-0. The aggressiveness every single time that Gonzaga was trying to kind of handle the ball either on the wing or up high, they were just always diving, slapping, and getting after the ball, turning them over 14 times. Very impressive. And then on the offensive end, when you're one of the best three-point teams in the country and it's fallen at 44%, that's going to spell trouble for the other team as well. I think Gonzaga got exposed a little bit. I'm not going to completely crap on the Bulldogs for this whole thing. But my point going back to the beginning of this tournament, mid-majors against good competition. Gonzaga played nobody on the way there. Creighton, a 5 seed, being the best team before that. Meanwhile, at least Baylor had to play some teams with higher numbers next to their school name. And I just feel like after they lost in the Big 12 tournament, they used it as motivation to rest up, say, look, we realize we can get this thing done, and we're going to go on, and we're going to win the national championship. And there's no case that you can make for Gonzaga or say, well, they would have did this or did that. Even Coach Few after the game said, look, we just got beat by a better team, and that they came in here, they took it. There's nothing we did wrong. They were the better team.
Yeah, Casey, if I were a Power 5 basketball coach right now, if I were a Division I basketball coach right now, I would put a poster up of the Baylor team in my weight room and say, come the start of our season, I want you to look like those guys. Because when those guys walked on the court and you looked at them in comparison to the Zags, you said, that's men against boys. I mean, just the size and the power, the way those guys looked, the shape, it was scary. It was scary. It really was like looking at an NBA team versus an AAU team. I mean, they were just. I was shocked, and it's really hard to shock me. And I had seen Baylor before, but it was just shocking to me. And then they came out and they were just so dominant early on. And I mean, they didn't play ugly, they didn't play nasty, but their strength and the fact that they were getting those offensive rebounds and Vasu will tell you that's my thing. That's my thing, man. When you can get that second and that third shot, bringing that ball back, that I any team that can do that, I'm in love with you. And that's what they were doing. They were just strength. And I got to tell you, I felt bad for Mark Few. I felt bad for his team. They played so well, and of course now here we go. And I was just as guilty as the rest. Let me go on record. I was just as guilty as the rest. Mid-major just can't win the NCAA. And you know what? Here we go. It's the mantra that stays there. I heard Doug Gottlieb say earlier this week. He said, for a team like Gonzaga, what they've got to do during the course of a regular season, somehow, and he said it's going to be so difficult for them to do, but somehow they have to figure out a way to schedule some games against some Power 5 conferences during the regular season, during the conference season. Because he said if all their regular season games during the conference season comes against the WCC and their biggest competition winds up being BYU, they'll never be tournament tough enough to get over the hump in that final game. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if that's realistic, but I thought it was a fascinating concept.
Congratulations to Baylor and congratulations to the Stanford women. What a game that was against Arizona the other night as well, too. The last second shot for Stanford did not cover the -6, but Arizona, good conference, good NCAA tournament in the men's and women's for the Pac-12, which is always good for somebody who covers the Pac-12. All right, let's move on to the NBA here. Vasu Party, Casey Freelove, Charlie O. Got about 10 minutes here. So let's hit the NBA a little quick. I watched the Clippers game last night, guys. 54-18 was the score on three-point shots last night for the Clippers to the Suns. I didn't realize the Clippers shot the ball that well from three, but boy, they turned it on in the second half. Phoenix just came off their victory against Utah. They had the best record. They still do have the best record in back-to-back games on the second half. They were 7-1 going into last night, so I really liked the Suns at +6 last night. But the Clippers, I still don't know what to make of them. They're only 12, and I say only 12 without disrespecting Houston tonight as you see the lines on our screen here. I got a feeling that there's going to be either no Kawhi Leonard or no Paul George tonight because otherwise that line would have to be 17. And then some of the other games, the New York Knicks have fallen down like I thought they would. Memphis is a 1-point favorite at the Knicks tonight. The Chicago Bulls are making their way up the charts. They beat Toronto last night. They're going to Atlanta. They're a 1.5-point underdog to the Hawks. And the Celtics, I can't figure them out at all. They're 8.5. They're 8.5 tonight against Minnesota, 227.5. I'm kind of impressed with Minnesota's offense, even though they're not going anywhere. They don't stop anybody. But boy, they can light it up with the best of them in the NBA right now. Some of the games this weekend, the Lakers Nets, obviously the big game tomorrow night. Lakers very short-handed, so that could be a bad deal for the Lakers tomorrow night. Casey, let me start with you on this. Kevin Durant came back the other day with the Brooklyn Nets, and boy, they did not miss a beat against New Orleans. It was a close game in the first quarter, 8.5-point favorite. They ended up winning by 35. Now Durant, now Harden, now Irving. It seems to me James Harden's the point guard, and he can distribute better than the other two. But boy, when they get all three going, are they going to be beatable? Because Philadelphia is doing everything they can to stay ahead of them right now, and I don't know if they can. Brooklyn just shoots the ball too
well. Well, the only question will be chemistry because every time I check a Nets game, I have to decide whether I want to bet on it based on who's not going to play tonight because they never play together, the three of them. And I get strategically, and by the way, let's give Steve Nash some credit. I mean, this is to be a first-year guy and have all these jewels and Cadillacs and private Lear jets thrust upon your lap. He's doing a pretty good job managing this whole thing. Aside from early on in the season when Kyrie kind of abandoned ship for some personal reasons, I think he's done a pretty good job. And his athletes aren't helping him. I mean, Kevin Durant's feuding with, washed up Hollywood stars and stuff. It's like, I don't care about that. I want to watch you play basketball and play at a high level. So I think we definitely are on a collision course for Nets versus Sixers, especially if Embiid can be the Joel Embiid that was projected to be an MVP in this league. And I love that. I think it's going to be great. But your question was, talking about how far they can go. Well, they can go all the way. That's why they're the number one pick right now at the sports books. I'm still a little leery because you're only one injury away from not having all three available. But if all three are available and healthy and motivated heading into the playoffs, that's certainly going to be something to keep an eye on. I'm looking at today's games. Something that's jumping out at me, guys, is the Hawks are -2 against the Bulls. I think two teams that have played pretty good here in the second half. That's definitely a watchable basketball game. Interestingly, though, 95% of the money is coming in on Chicago +2, and 100% of the money is coming in on the over-under at over 228. Now, when numbers start getting that high and wonky, it makes me want to break out my Fade the Public t-shirt. I mean, I can't get with 95 and above. Typically means you need to run away from that particular contest. So that's one that jumps out at me as far as handicapping tonight. Another interesting one, Charlotte. I'm not sure why people are on Charlotte so much, but the Bucks are laying 7.5. 82% of the money right now on the Hornets. And again, another one where statistically 100% of the cash is on the over 223. Let me ask you this, Vasu. As I look at tonight's big board, I'm seeing totals a little bit lower than I did the last couple of weeks. It's not like they're low, but creeping more down towards the 220 mark rather than being closer to the 230. Anything that you can think of that would account for that, or is that just a matchup thing based on what's happening today?
Yeah, this is the last third of the season, Charlie, as we get to it. This is the last third of the season. Teams are starting to fight for playoff spots, and you can't win just shooting the lights out. This isn't the YMCA, or this isn't the bubble last year where it looked like there was no depth perception. Everybody was just shooting. I was watching the Lakers, Miami last night, and Miami's defense has played okay this year. They're one of the top 5 defenses, but the Lakers still got 104 on them and covered the 8.5, by the way, even without Anthony Davis and LeBron James. Every total here is in the 220s. Yeah, I can see that. Memphis 215. The Knicks. I mean, I'm too young to know what molasses is, but the Knicks play like molasses. They're very slow. I don't even know what molasses is. I think that's something that's just stale like, whatever it is. Anyway, the only total that I see here that's of anything to go with, 239. Golden State 4.5 at home against Washington. 221 for the Clippers and the Rockets. If the Clippers shoot like they did last night, that'll go over. But I just don't think Houston can score. Philadelphia at New Orleans. New Orleans doesn't play any defense, so 229 might be cheap. I don't know when Embiid's coming back. I haven't heard much about him. And Indiana also fighting out for that 9-10 spot as well. Charlie, what's your take on the NBA this weekend before we get to picks?
By the way, molasses is a syrup, a very, very thick syrup that pours very, very slowly. So,
can you put it on toast?
You can put it on pancakes and biscuits and that kind of stuff. I don't like it. It's too sweet and it's too thick. But anyway, my take on the NBA this weekend is that it's about defense now, guys. That's why the totals are coming down. We've had all the run and gun, and now it's getting serious. We're getting down to the playoffs, and you can have all the fun you want, but it's about defense. Now, I know that that's an oxymoron for a lot of folks when we come to the NBA, but defense does come into play. And that defense may mean that the totals come down by 10 points total in a game, but there is defense that's going to come to play, and teams are going to start playing defense, and it's going to make a difference in these totals. So you're going to want to watch that, and I think it's going to become more defensive as things go along. The one thing I saw last night, guys, that I was interested in, that Miami LA game is that Drummond made for the Lakers. I was very impressed with him on the floor. Now, they didn't win that game, but he was very active. And I was also interested to see the difference that Rondo made on the floor for them. And Anthony Davis is rumored to be ready to come back possibly on Sunday, definitely by next week. Now, no word on LeBron yet, but I think with Davis back, Drummond there, and with Rondo there, I think they're poised to start to rev it back up. It was very interesting.
Posse Vada Party, Casey Freelove, Charlie O, the Make the Money and Run podcast. We haven't forgotten about picks yet. We'll get to them in a second. I'm interested in the NBA from the standpoint of 7-10. Now the play-in tournament, Dallas, Memphis, San Antonio, Golden State, 7-10 in the West. Boston, New York, fading down to 8. Indianapolis, Indiana, and Chicago, 7-10 in the East. The top 4 in the East. Brooklyn, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, and Charlotte. Can't figure out Milwaukee. Utah, Phoenix. That'll be a great Western Conference Finals if those two end up there. Clippers are saying, hold on, not so fast. Denver and the Lakers, 4-5, and then Portland at number 6 last night. All right, as we wind down the program now, let's get to picks. Casey, go ahead. What do you got for the weekend?
All right, well, the picks are up there on the big board. I'm going to ride with Klubes. Corey Kluber heading down to Tampa to take on Rich Hill and his 9 ERA. The Rays are 2-4. The Yanks are 3-3. The Rays aren't going to be as good as people hoped from last year, and the Yanks are going to be a lot better than they were last year. So this is the kind of game I just think they get the W. And also, don't forget, as I put on the bottom of the screen, list your pitchers. List your pitchers. You're betting Corey Kluber against Rich Hill, not the Yankees against the Rays. A's Astros over 8, just because this crappy offense has got to break out at some point. I think Lance McCullers might be a tiny bit overrated for the Astros, and Sean Manaea pretty much give up 8.5 runs himself if he's not having a good day. Last pick, Grizzlies -1 at the Knicks. I know it feels like it's a trap, but it's not a trap. The Knicks are not playing that good. The Memphis is red hot. They've won 4 games in a row, 7-3 in their last 10, and I think that they don't even want to play in that play-in game. They've got their eyes on maybe a 7 or a 6 seed if they can keep things up, Charlie.
Yeah, absolutely. My picks for the day, I'm doing a little baseball. I'm going Colorado versus San Francisco. I'm going over 8 in that game. Daytime game, San Francisco. That ball flies there. So I think that that will be a game that'll get over 8 there in that one. Oakland versus Houston. My total when I got into it was 9. So I think it's going to go under 9. I just don't think the A's bats have woken up yet. Guys, excuse me just 1 second here. I got the old frog in the throat there. Then I went to the NBA, and I'm going totals because I just didn't like any of the spreads particularly. Indiana and the Magic, I'm going under 225.5. And then Minnesota versus Boston. By the way, guys, every time I have gone against Minnesota in the spread recently, I have just been burned. So I'm not getting involved in that one. I'm going under in that game. The total is set at 227.5.
All right, my picks for today are: I'm going to take I'm going to go with the New York Yankees as well, -135 with Corey Kluber. I'm going to take the San Francisco Giants at -155 with Cueto at home. Their bats are starting to play well. I can't go against the Astros right now. 170, I think was the line. 168 I saw against the A's. Manaea, I don't know which Sean Manaea is going to come back. Not the promising one. He's had a rough couple of years. So those are the 3 baseball games I'm going to go with. And then in the NBA, I'm going to go with I'm going to go with the Chicago Bulls +1.5 I have here. So I'm going to take the Bulls at +1.5, and then I'm going to go with the over on the Minnesota-Boston game, over 227.5. You can catch us every Monday, Thursday, and Friday, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific. Facebook Live, Stables Media YouTube page. If you miss any of the live broadcast, download, subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. I feel us. We're going to be hot here in the next few weeks with baseball and basketball, so make sure you download and subscribe. He's Casey Freelove. That's Charlie O. I'm Vasi Vada Party. We'll see you Monday, 4:15 for the Make the Money and Run podcast. Have a great weekend, everybody.